Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone's doing very well, having a good Monday. Of course, as always, there's a ton of news stories to get into in the world of WWE and AEW and the wider world of pro wrestling. So let's get straight into today's news stories. Of course, let's kick off with more tributes to Brodie Lee. Of course, I'm quite frankly still in shock after the shock announcement of Brodie Lee's passing at the way too young an age of 41 years of age. Obviously, tributes have been pouring out from the pro wrestling world over the last 48 hours since the announcement of his passing. What I did want to mention briefly, and I don't want to get into it too much because I don't think, to be honest, it deserves that amount of spotlight, but there was an article that was released yesterday on a particular website. I'm not going to name the website, I'm not going to name the journalist who wrote it or anything like that. I don't think they deserve the mention, quite frankly. And at the time that it was posted, it had only been 48 hours since the announcement of the passing of Brodie Lee. And to get down to the bare bones of it, this article is ridiculous, quite frankly. It's ridiculous. They had an article, this journalist had an article questioning why the family would keep a private medical condition out of the public eye. They used sensationalist language to make baseless claims about the causes of the illness and a potential cover-up, and demanded further details from a grieving widow about a private medical condition. I thought it was in bad taste. I thought it lacked total respect. I thought it lacked any form of decency. And the person that wrote it should be absolutely ashamed of themselves, quite frankly. And they had the nerve, what I think infuriated a lot of people the most, is they had the nerve to mask it in this cloak of journalism. I'm just being a journalist. I just need to ask the questions, regardless of how difficult the question or subject might be. I'm a journalist, so I ask these questions. We need to know answers. We need to know answers. I'm just being a journalist. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're being nosy. You're being sensationalist. You're trying to get attention. You're trying to get clicks over a subject that is so raw. People are still grieving. People are still mourning. People are still very, very upset. And I understand that he's a public figure. I understand that he was a public figure and he was a pro wrestler in the spotlight. But this is 48 hours on. And questions will be asked, but there's a time and a place for that. And it certainly isn't now. And it certainly isn't your right, my right, or anyone's right to have private medical information released. Because we need to know, because we demand it. Pandemic or not, it's not any of our business. The condition, the illness, or anything like that, or the circumstances surrounding his passing. It just isn't. And again, they mask it in this, well, it's in the public eye, it's in the public's best interest. No, it's not. No, it's not. And I thought it was just being so disrespectful, demanding extra details of a private medical condition from a grieving widow, and just the baseless, wild speculations, being sensationalist. And they're making these ridiculous accusations and speculating on circumstances with zero facts. There are zero facts that have been released. Why? Because it's only been 48 hours since the announcement was made. And they're making these ridiculous claims, ridiculous speculation with zero facts, zero information, and it's abhorrent. It's absolutely distasteful and disgusting. And that's not journalism. I'm not a journalist, I'm a fan. I share my opinion. And I don't ever claim that I'm a journalist or anything like that. But this person does. This person does claim that they're a journalist and they're asking difficult questions, and they're not. They're just not. And don't try and pretend that they're a journalist, because they're not. They're not. A man died. A good man, a great man died with a wife and 2 young children just 48 hours ago. And you're demanding details and you're creating conspiracy theories? Seriously? It's disgusting, and they should be absolutely disgusted with themselves. And to be honest, I've spent a couple of minutes talking about it, and I've probably given it way too much time anyway, so let's move on. There was a nice tribute from Dax Harwood, AEW star, one half of FTR. They shared a story on social media from 3 years ago where Brodie Lee helped the FTR member and his wife get through a difficult ordeal. As revealed by Harwood, his wife had a miscarriage, and among the few people they shared this terrible news with were the Hubers, Brodie Lee and his wife Amanda. According to Harwood, the Hubers were constantly checking in on his wife and sending flowers, card and care packages after the traumatic ordeal. Harwood tweeted, quote, 3 years ago, my wife had a miscarriage. We didn't tell very many people. We told the Hubers. During a difficult time in our lives, Jon and Amanda would text and call my wife and I just to see how we were doing. They sent flowers, cards, and care packages. In the follow-up tweets, Harwood raised a toast to Lee and thanked the late wrestler and his wife for their generosity and kindness. He said, quote, "That's the kind of people they are. That's the kind of people this world needs. That's the kind of person I need to be. I love you, Jon. Thanks for everything. This Knob Creek is for you." And WWE superstar Bayley responded to Harwood's tweet and raised a toast to Lee as well, saying, quote, "I'll join you. Cheers to both of your beautiful families." Now, another person who's been paying tribute to Brodie Lee over the last few days after his shot passing is the current WWE Intercontinental Champion Big E. Now, he is hopeful that the tragic loss of Brodie Lee, who he considered a dear friend, will give the wrestling business, quote, "something great and meaningful, since the industry can otherwise be, quote, a dark and callous place." Big E tweeted, quote, "I cried with so many grown men as we told each other I love you the last 2 days. This industry can be dark and callous, but it can also be beautiful and resilient. I hope losing Brodie gives us something great and meaningful." Now, in another tweet, Big E made a little joke of how Lee's appearance always gave off the impression of a panhandler or a homeless person, even though it was the exact opposite of the kind of man Lee really was. Quote, "If I didn't know him, I'd think, what a beautiful panhandler. I've reached the laugh to keep crying stage of grief." As noted before, Big E shared the telephone conversations he had with Lee earlier this year when the two former WWE superstars cried over the controversial death of George Floyd. According to Big E, Lee would always, quote, "hit the next town or drive home by ending conversations with goodbye forever." Big E said, quote, "I always rolled my eyes whenever he said goodbye forever. As god-awful as this has been, I'm glad I got to say goodbye. I never had a better friend," end quote. And something else I did want to talk about when it came to Brodie Lee was this tweet that Jim Ross shared with us yesterday. And as you can see on the screen now, it says, quote, "With Brodie Jr. at the Jaguars game enjoying a dog, thanks to AEW Wrestling for the thoughtful hospitality." And I mean, it chokes you up just seeing the picture, to be honest. I think it's... I cannot even imagine what that young child is going through right now. I think he's 7 or 8 years old, obviously as a younger sibling as well, and just losing your father over the holidays, over the festive period, it's got to be so tough. But it really does warm my heart to see people like Jim Ross and AEW and the Khan family taking care of Brodie Lee's family during this difficult time. It's just fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic to see. And I'm glad to even see a smile on the kid's face, and credit to JR and AEW and the Khan family and everyone involved for doing their best to support the family at the difficult time. So it's a heartwarming picture, but it's also a sad picture, I suppose. But credit to JR and AEW. I thought that was a really nice touch for them to do that. So going back to the Brodie Lee tributes, WWE Chairman and CEO Vince McMahon also paid tribute to the former WWE superstar Luke Harper. McMahon tweeted, quote, "The entire WWE family is deeply saddened by the passing of Jon Huber, known to the WWE Universe as Luke Harper. Our thoughts are with Jon's family, friends, and fans." Now, of course, Brodie Lee previously worked with WWE from 2012 to 2019. He was released from the promotion earlier this year after requesting his release. He then, of course, went to sign with AEW and was a leader of the Dark Order stable. I think, look, the early Brodie Lee character in AEW did have echoes, shall we say, and similarities of Vince McMahon. And I do think that was by design. But if you've seen any interview with Brodie Lee when he spoke about that, he said that if anything, it made it quite difficult for him, and he wanted to get as far away from those comparisons as possible. That it may have been a one-off intention, but he didn't expect that to be as big as it became in terms of those comparisons. So what he did, I was just listening to him a podcast, and he was talking about it a couple of minutes ago before I started recording this, and he said that basically what he did to counteract that was he went out and bought these custom-made suits that Vince McMahon wouldn't wear, and just tried to distance himself as far as possible from those comparisons to Vince McMahon. And look, I mean, some people I saw were saying, "Oh, Vince McMahon won't say anything." Look, at the end of the day, business is here, life is here, and everyone is still stunned, shocked, and grieving from this awful loss. And it's a real tough one. It's a real tough one to take still, even days after the fact. But what has been warming, as I mentioned yesterday in the tribute video we did for Brodie Lee, is what has been really warming is seeing everyone in the world of pro wrestling coming together, whether regardless of company allegiance or anything like that, coming together, sharing their stories about how Jon Huber touched them and their heart during his life, and what a great man, father and husband he really was. And I'm sure the tributes will continue. It's still a loss that's going to take a lot of time to get over, and I hope that obviously starting with Raw tonight and with Dynamite on Wednesday and NXT on Wednesday and SmackDown on Friday, I would hope that we see lots of tributes. I know certainly we will for AEW Dynamite. I wouldn't be surprised if that turns into a full-blown tribute show. As far as Raw or SmackDown, obviously I think we'll see the graphic before the show goes on the air. I would hope we see something more though. It's too heartbreaking and sad and fresh for it just to be a graphic. So we'll have to wait and see with that. Some other news that I wanted to talk about was Pat McAfee. Now, Pat McAfee, this has been a really interesting story actually over the little holiday break that we've had here, because Pat McAfee has been in the news a little bit, because it was previously reported that Pat McAfee, NXT superstar, I guess you would call him, NFL legend, former NFL kicker, has reportedly been pulled from WWE television. Now, although no specific reason for why Pat McAfee had been pulled from TV was provided, Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer reported earlier that the decision to stop using McAfee was WWE's call and not Pat McAfee's. Now, in the latest Wrestling Observer Radio, it was noted that McAfee doesn't have any heat with the WWE higher-ups or officials, and this is just a case of WWE wanting him off TV for a while rather than using him on a regular basis on NXT. Now, Pat McAfee had some fun with this, because on Saturday, McAfee tweeted, quote, "I think I got fired on Christmas," along with several screenshots of reports that WWE indeed was pulling him from TV. Now, Meltzer noted that McAfee was just having fun about the situation and he doesn't have any issues with WWE either. Now, the story when it comes to Pat McAfee being pulled from TV isn't strange, because I agree with the reports out there that he doesn't have any heat. I don't see why he would. He's been with NXT for a while now. Before he was performing, of course, he did the pre-shows. He was not an announcer as such, but he was a personality. The thing that I really don't understand is why Pat McAfee would be pulled from TV at all, because arguably, he is the best thing on NXT right now. I mean, CM Punk made the comparison. It's almost embarrassing how good Pat McAfee is. I mean, he is really that good. For a guy that doesn't have a lot of pro wrestling training, I think maybe he did some training prior to the Adam Cole match, and way back when he might have taken a few bumps in an independent ring somewhere. But for the lack of training that he has, for just being a fan his whole life, for just being someone that has been familiar with the product for the entirety of his life, for a sports star and athlete coming into WWE and NXT, he is arguably the best promo on that roster right now. And he ain't bad in the ring either. The matches he's had, he's been sensational, nothing short. Now, obviously, he had the match against Adam Cole, NXT TakeOver 30. Adam Cole is Adam Cole, and he definitely did help him through that match. And War Games, it was the same. He had a lot of people in there that are very, very good in the ring. But what you can't take away from him is his charisma, his personality, and his promos. He's just that good. He is just that good. And that's why I'm confused why you would take Pat McAfee off TV, because why take one of the best things going on the TV show off? This is a period of time where, the Wednesday Night Wars, I know maybe WWE doesn't care about them anymore. They've maybe resigned themselves to knowing that they're going to lose to AEW regardless every week in total viewership and the demo. Occasionally they'll get a win, but in the grand scheme of things, this is a war that they're losing. Maybe they're just like, okay, you know what, let's stop trying to stack up those shows and do anything like that. What we need to focus on is developing talent to go on Raw and SmackDown. Not that that means anything, because when they go to Raw or SmackDown, they get changed every which way apart from Sunday, and everything about them is changed. Every gimmick that they have is changed. Every aspect of their personality is changed. Their looks changed. Their entrance music's changed. Their ring gear's changed. Everything's changed. So I don't even know why they're developing talent in NXT, because they're just completely changed in the image of Vince McMahon once they get to Raw and SmackDown anyway. Nevertheless, I just don't get it. I understand maybe the thought process of trying to keep Pat McAfee fresh and he's an attraction, but this is a guy that said, I'd be available. It's not as if Pat McAfee's pulled a Brock Lesnar and gone, I'm only contracted to certain dates and I'm not coming in unless you pay me. Pat McAfee's a fan. he's a fan and he's arguably the best thing on NXT. So I really don't understand it. I really don't understand that thought process, because even if you just have him as a personality, as a manager, just let him cut promos every week. Let him have his own talk show. They love a talk show in WWE. They have Kevin Owens do a KO show every week, or a Moment of Bliss. Have Pat McAfee do his own in NXT. How great would that be? I mean, he does a radio show every day. What's the difference between doing it in a studio and then doing it inside of an NXT ring in the Capitol Wrestling Center? I just don't get it. I really don't understand why you would take him off TV. It doesn't make any sense to me. Speaking of being off TV, we have a return date for Seth Rollins, because WWE superstar Seth Rollins has been announced to return on the January 1st edition of Friday Night SmackDown on Fox. Now, this was confirmed in an advertisement that I think ran during the NFL games on Fox. It certainly was posted on WWE on Fox Twitter account and social media platform. So it's been confirmed that Seth Rollins will be returning on the January 1st edition of Friday Night SmackDown. Of course, Rollins has been absent from WWE TV ever since we saw him sacrifice himself for the greater good at Survivor Series. In the traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination match, he tagged himself into the ring. He allowed Sheamus from Team Raw to hit him with a Brogue Kick and cover him for the pin, leading to his elimination, and we haven't seen him since. Now, in reality, of course, Seth Rollins has been on paternity leave after the birth of his first child. Becky Lynch, of course, is his fiancée, and Becky has been on hiatus ever since her pregnancy announcement immediately after the Money in the Bank 2020 pay-per-view. Of course, it's going to be very fascinating and interesting to see what Seth Rollins has to say in terms of the storyline about his sacrifice. Is there going to be a gimmick change? Is there going to be a character change? I don't think so. I think he'll probably stick with the Monday Night Messiah. What's he called him? The SmackDown Savior. It's not the Friday Night Messiah because there's no alliteration. It's the SmackDown Savior character. I think he would stay with that. What's interesting with that as well is that, of course, the spin-off of that storyline, the long-running Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio, or Mysterio family storyline, the spin-off storyline of that was Murphy being with Aaliyah and potentially, a wedding. Can Murphy be trusted, etc., etc. I really hope that Seth Rollins' return isn't the catalyst to spark up that whole storyline again. I understand that they're going in a direction with Murphy and Aaliyah. I just don't need to see any more Rollins and Mysterio drama. That has been going on for way too long at this point. I mean, it's pretty much happened since going after Money in the Bank, right? In 2020. So that night after Becky Lynch announced her pregnancy and has been on hiatus from WWE ever since was the night that the Mysterio-Rollins storyline kicked off. Yes, it's been going on for that long. We're talking like nearly 9 months. So with Seth Rollins' return and his absence from TV, I want to see him do something different. Now, what's that going to do? Does that mean he's going to face Roman Reigns? They're two top heels. I don't think so. If Rollins faced Roman Reigns almost turns into a babyface. I don't think that's going to happen. Although, I did think that we were going to get Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan at the Royal Rumble, and we know that's not the case because Daniel Bryan's now announced himself to compete in the Royal Rumble match. So, what is Roman Reigns going to do come Royal Rumble season? Is he going to be facing Kevin Owens again? Which I would be 100% for. I'm really enjoying that feud. I thought their match on SmackDown, the Steel Cage match, was sensational. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. So I would have no problems seeing that match again. And like I speculated before, if anything, it's a case of the Jey Uso Roman Reigns situation again, where it was meant to be a one-time deal. Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens was meant to be for TLC and TLC alone. But it was so good that they've had to do it again and again and again. And I have no problem with that. So it'll be interesting to see what Rollins does. Like I said, fingers crossed. It's got nothing to do with the Mysterios, because the Mysterios have been absent off TV and they just said that there's nothing really for them right now. I really hope they haven't been held off of TV because they're waiting for Rollins to come back. That would infuriate me, but I wouldn't put it past them. So it'll be interesting to see Rollins back. And of course, Seth Rollins is Seth Rollins. He does improve the show. So SmackDown's been very good recently anyway. Of course, they did a huge rating for Christmas Day. I mean, 4 million viewers in the first hour, dropped off significantly in the second, but an average of 3 million live viewers. Incredible numbers, especially for Christmas Day and a taped episode. So put Seth Rollins in there and potentially get even better. So very exciting there. Talking about returns, talk about a recent return, that's Charlotte Flair's return to WWE television. And we have a little bit of an update as to how Charlotte Flair's return to WWE TV actually affected plans for Lana on Monday Night Raw. Now, of course, Charlotte Flair recently returned to WWE following a lengthy 6-month hiatus due to surgeries and recovering from injuries. However, it's been reported that it wasn't always the plan to have her win the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships with Asuka upon her return. Now, according to Fightful Select, a report from Fightful Select, that is their Patreon service, a subscription is required, so be sure to check that out, they do good work. According to a report by Fightful Select, Flair's return wasn't even considered or on the cards when the Lana versus Nia Jax feud first began on Monday Night Raw. Now, Flair was expected to return in the fall or winter of 2020 in preparation for Royal Rumble and WrestleMania season. However, it wasn't taken into consideration until after Survivor Series in November, where Lana remained as Raw's sole survivor in the Raw vs SmackDown traditional 5-on-5 elimination match. Now, the report also noted that there were, quote, plenty of members of the roster who were left in the dark about Flair's return. Now, Lana, of course, is currently off of TV for undisclosed reasons. It's been reported that she'll be back in about 3 or 4 weeks, but no injury reports are known. Some are just saying they're just selling the injury of the attack from Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Now, this report is interesting to me because it just goes to show, I think, what everyone knows at the moment when it comes to WWE storyline and preparation and creative, but especially on the Raw side of things, is that it's chaos. It's absolute chaos, and they don't know what they're doing until a couple of weeks before they do it. And it kind of flies in the face of the previous reports that, remember we spoke about it here on the news edition a couple of weeks ago, when the reports and rumours of Charlotte Flair's return started to really hype up. There was a report by, I think, Alex McCarthy of TalkSport, and he said that Charlotte Flair's plans for her return had been locked in. And she basically demanded to WWE and WWE Creative, I don't want to return unless my plans are solid, locked in, and we know exactly what we're going to do. I don't want to return for the sake of returning. And that was about 2 weeks before TLC. All right, yeah, maybe about 2 weeks, 10 days before TLC. And it would appear, if I'm trying to read between the lines here, that that report was probably found out a day or so before, because that's when the plans were locked in. So it goes to show WWE and their storyline planning, they have no idea what they're doing from month. Previously I thought it was month to month. You know, they go from, right, we do all the stuff for Survivor Series, then we do the stuff for TLC, then we do the stuff for the Royal Rumble. They go month to month to month to month. They don't even do that now. They go week to week, which is terrifying. But also it goes to explain why Raw is in the place it is right now. Because how can you tell stories like that? How can you tell stories if you don't even know what the ending is going to be? You're just going week to week and flying by the seat of your pants. How can you plan? How can you do anything like that? And it's ironic because for the longest time, we were conditioned with this Lana and Nia Jax storyline to have sympathy for Lana, right? How many times did she go through the announce table, which I didn't like at first, but it worked in the end. It worked on me. And again, over and over and over again, she got over and over as a sympathetic babyface. She kind of gets the win at Survivor Series. Then she gets the win over Nia Jax on Raw, and you're starting to get behind her. She's gone. Why? Charlotte Flair's back. Why? When did you decide that? About 10 minutes ago. That's what we're doing now. So all the story that you've been telling us for 6-10 weeks means nothing now. It's just baffling. It's baffling. And that's really, you know, I mentioned before when it comes to Raw, Raw is in the condition and situation it is for a variety of reasons. It really is. But one of them absolutely is the creative. Absolutely is the creative. The way they tell stories on that show is just bizarre and sometimes ridiculous, silly, nonsensical. And in comparison, you have SmackDown is going from strength to strength. They have a show like they did on Christmas Day. They have ratings like they did on Christmas Day. 4 million viewers tune in live for the opening hour. 3 million on an average overall over the 2 hours. It almost is baffling to me that that's the same company that produces Raw. Because SmackDown is so good, so watchable, such great content. And in comparison, Monday Night Raw, it's the only thing Raw about is the name. It's boring, it's long, the storylines are stupid, and they insult your intelligence, and they obviously go to week. Maybe they go to hour, because we get all of those reports about rewrites and all that kind of stuff. It's just madness. It's madness. And I think that was the thing that I really took away from that story was they don't have a clue. They do not have a clue what they're doing. It's crazy. Speaking of Raw, though, it's been confirmed that Carlito will be officially returning to the company for the special January 4 episode of Monday Night Raw, known as Raw Legends Night. Now, this was announced when the Raw Legends Night promos first went out. People saw Carlito on there, and Carlito's name was listed on the WWE.com official rundown of the legends that would be appearing on the show. But people kind of went, Carlito? Oh, wow, that's kind of out of left field. But the company, they shared a post on Instagram officially confirming Carlito's return. Now, Carlito has not been seen inside of a WWE ring for about 10 years, since 2010. He was present, though. His last WWE appearance was actually when he inducted his father, Carlos Colon Sr., into the WWE Hall of Fame. But Carlito is a name that WWE have wanted to return for the company for a long, long time. Even going back to the second brand split back in 2016, there was rumors and reports that WWE really wanted Carlito to return. He was among those names of the likes of Jinder Mahal, Rhino. I think Mike Knox was also asked to come back around that period of time, and Carlito was another name that was asked, do you want to come back? We need more names on the roster. Would you be interested? A deal has never been mutually agreed on both sides, even though there have been, go back over the years, for the last 5 years at least, there have been at least 2 or 3 reports going, yeah, deal's pretty much done, Carlito's returning, and it's never happened. So time will tell whether this is just a cameo, a one-off, a legend to be brought back. But unlike many of the legends that are being brought back for this Raw Legends Night, Carlito can still go in the ring. He can still be great as an active performer. And I think if we've learned something in 2020 when it comes to superstars of the previous generation returning, it's that you can't rule them out, and they're absolutely effective and still a massive, massive asset and can be very, very valuable to the WWE roster. The perfect example is MVP. At the start of the year before he returned at the Royal Rumble, could you have said that MVP at this stage in his career could have the impact that he's had? You'd have said, no way, his time's gone, he's over, he's probably looking at retirement. Even he thought he was, after his Royal Rumble cameo and that cameo on Raw the following night. He thought he was done. He announced his retirement pretty much. So I don't think we can rule anyone out, regardless of their age at the moment, because we've seen that that's just not the case. So if Carlito can come back, absolutely he can be effective. Absolutely. The irony being is that his brother and his cousin, Primo and Epico, were released as part of the budget cuts earlier this year, and I always felt that they could have been a Puerto Rican dynasty kind of situation there, but obviously WWE never wanted to go down that route. So perhaps this return in January 2021 at this Raw Legends Night could be the start of a full-time return for Carlito. We don't know yet. We just don't know. But we can absolutely see it's going to be very interesting. And I'm excited. I think it's one of the names, actually, I'm probably excited the most to see on that Raw Legends Night. You know, yes, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Kurt Angle, great. Carlito, though, because he can do stuff. What I used to really like about these legend returns, whether they was Raw Homecoming or Old School Raw, etc., is when the legends actually got into the ring, they could participate. I always felt the most effectiveness of these shows was how they could help elevate the younger talent or the current talent. When you could have an old time wrestler come out that could still take a bump or whatever, and you could have a current modern day superstar beat the hell out of them, do something with them that could elevate them. Not have this old timer come out and beat down a current WWE superstar, and then the old timer is never seen on WWE TV again, yet the current WWE superstar is, what can they do now? It hurts their stock. And I think WWE falls into that way too often. They fall into these legend shows way too often as a desperate plea for ratings. But Carlito, arguably, is actually the name I'm looking forward to the most. So maybe it does lead to a full-time return. Who knows? Another bit of WWE news is that WWE have officially filed a new trademark for the Hardy Bros with the United States Patent and Trademark Office on December 23rd. The trademark was filed for use in entertainment services, namely performances by a professional wrestler. This is according to a report by Heel by Nature, and the application was entered into the Trademark Office database on December 26th. Now, in recent weeks on Raw, we've seen Jeff Hardy and Riddle teaming up under the name Hardy Bros. The new trademark filing could mean that WWE have long-term plans for the duo on Monday Night Raw. They are currently feuding with the Hurt Business. I think eventually they'll probably become the tag team champions. Not because they'll be an amazing tag team, but because the tag team championships don't mean anything in WWE. I mean, they mean nothing. I mean, once again, it's two single stars being put together in a tag team. It's not a real tag team. I'm sure Jeff Hardy, when he signed that new deal, and he was excited to return at the start of this year, and he's thinking about all of these potential amazing feuds that he could be in. Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Bray Wyatt, all of these amazing things the former WWE champion Jeff Hardy could do. He didn't think he was going to be feuding with Sheamus and having urine thrown on him. He didn't think he was going to be feuding with Elias over guitars, and I don't think he thought he was going to be teaming with Riddle being called the Hardy Bros and having Riddle be a comedy character handing out bro nuts. Isn't that creative on Raw good? I mean, it's just amazing, isn't it? It's just... Look, the Riddle promos and segments the last couple of weeks, they fall in line with those reports that Mr. McMahon, Vince McMahon, thinks Riddle is funny. He doesn't get him, but I think he's funny, so that's what we're going to double down on him. And his promos, to be honest, they've been pretty insufferable for me, and I get that it's maybe... once again, it's just changes to NXT superstars that I don't understand. And the Hardy Bros name, people think, oh, it's a slight against Matt Hardy and all that in AEW. I don't subscribe to that. It isn't. It's just genuinely, and this is the scariest thing about it, it's genuinely Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, the WWE creative for Raw, they think this is the best way to get Matt Riddle over. They genuinely do. That's the terrifying part of that. That's the real terrifying part of that. It's crazy. Speaking of Raw and speaking of the ratings, I wanted to talk about this as well because the decline when it comes to Monday Night Raw's ratings and just ratings in general when it comes to pro wrestling and WWE have been a hot topic throughout the year, but especially the last month or so where Raw reached the record low when it pulled in 1.527 million live viewers on average for the December 14 show. And everyone's got an opinion on why, how to fix it. I do, you do. And another person that has an opinion on it is current AEW broadcaster and WWE Hall of Famer Jim Ross. Now, during the Grilling JR podcast, the subject of WWE's viewership problems came up as they talked about current issues with the product. Now, Jim Ross didn't hold back when he laid out WWE's problems that could be a cause of this ratings decline. He said, quote, "They don't have anybody hot. They have nobody that has momentum. Nobody is on the proverbial roll. You can't stop 50-50 booking. I'll beat you with a small package, then you beat me up. How do you get any momentum? He did the job, so I have to give him something back? What? BS. Not tonight, not now. It makes no sense. That's 50-50 booking. You can't have it both ways. Do you want the people to be happy or sad? Do you want them to be angry or do you want them laughing? Well, I want them both. Well, then you're an idiot and you can't have that." Now, I love Jim Ross's podcast. I'm a big fan of JR's podcast because he doesn't hold back. And he's not wrong. It's in the same way when he criticised the AEW wrestlers the other week and talking about their spots, the over-reliance on dives and super kicks and DDTs that don't mean anything. He wasn't wrong then, and I don't think he's wrong here. I don't think it's the overall reason for Raw's ratings demise and WWE's ratings demise is just 50-50 booking. I think there's a variety of reasons. It's not just one thing. It is 50-50 booking, but it's also creative. It's how they shoot the shows. It's production. It's Raw being 3 hours long. It's how people consume TV in 2020. It's not taking into account streams and social media and YouTube and a variety of topics. It's not just one thing, but his criticism there I think is justified. I think it's absolutely justified, but 50-50 booking when it comes to WWE, I mean, that's been the case for years. And you could say there absolutely is a correlation with WWE doing 50-50 booking for a long time and the ratings going down over that same period of time. It's a correlation. Is it a causal link? I don't know. But it certainly is a correlation there. And finally, we have an update on the next guest on the Broken Skull Sessions with Steve Austin on the WWE Network. That being former SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley, because Bayley is set to be the next guest on Steve Austin's Broken Skull Sessions. This is per WWE Network news. The episode will premiere on the WWE Network on Sunday, January 10, 2021. The former SmackDown Women's Champion will be the first female guest on the video podcast and the second only active talent to sit alongside Stone Cold on the show. Recent guests have included WWE Champion Drew McIntyre, Goldberg, Ric Flair, The Undertaker, Kane, and others. As the SmackDown Women's Champion, Bayley reigned for a record 380 days, the longest reign in the Blue Brand's history. The Golden Role Model then dropped the title earlier this fall to former tag team partner Sasha Banks at Hell in a Cell. In recent weeks, she's been engaged in a mini feud with Bianca Belair on SmackDown. Really excited and interested to see what this interview with Bayley and Steve Austin will look like. Huge fan of the Broken Skull Sessions. I think they're fantastic. Steve Austin, I think, does an excellent job in these interviews. I was a fan of the live podcast and I'm a fan of these Broken Skull Sessions, so interesting to see what Bayley says, and I always look forward to whenever these drop because they're usually like an hour and a half in length, and they do get into all kinds of questions, so I'm excited to see Bayley on the Broken Skull Sessions. There certainly is a ton to talk about there. But of course, as always, This is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, you name it. We talk about everything pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak with you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.